SVP and Russillo, the podcast.
Hey, it's SVP and Russillo. We appreciate you checking out the podcast. The Patriots owner, Robert Kraft, says he will reluctantly accept the penalties imposed by NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell. Chris Mortensen with his thoughts on that. Tim Kurkjian stops by. Reaction inside baseball to the hiring of Ken Jennings to skipper the Marlins in Miami. We talk NBA lottery tonight. I'll tell you why the Knicks stink. Ryan says you shouldn't get too fired up for the lottery anyway. Thoughts on John Calipari perhaps to the NBA and why I would pick Vinny Del Negro over him as an NBA coach. That I got something to say. Let me ask you a question. All part of the podcast, which starts now.
Now, SVP and Russillo on ESPN Radio.
And ESPNradio.com.
This Kraft news conference. He is continuing to speak. And what we can do here in a moment is just sort of roll back where he weighed in on sort of his game plan and what his approach is going to be moving forward. Just let me know when we're good with that. Either that or we just now he's stopped. So, okay, we got it? Okay. So, here's Robert Kraft. A moment ago talking about how they've handled the situation here.
And I think maybe if I had made the decision last week, it would be different than it is today. But believing in the strength of the partnership and the 32 teams, we have concentrated the power of adjudication of problems in the office of the commissioner. And although I might disagree with what is decided, I do have respect for the commissioner and believe that he's doing what he perceives to be in the best interest of the full 32. So in that spirit, I don't want to continue the rhetoric that's gone on for the last 4 months. I'm going to accept reluctantly what he has given to us and not continue this dialogue and rhetoric. And we won't appeal. Now, I know that a lot of Patriot fans are going to be disappointed in that decision. But I hope they trust my judgment and know that I really feel at this point in time that taking this off the agenda, this is the best thing for the New England Patriots, our fans, and the NFL.
That's Robert Kraft. Will accept reluctantly what he's given to us. Said if it was a week ago, he would have felt differently. What do you think changed?
Well, this is different than Brady, right? Brady still appealed. He's going to try to reduce that 4-game thing. So this is strictly about the $1 million and about the 2 draft picks. I think what changed is he may have read the team's rebuttal to the Wells report and went, what are we doing? That thing was, I mean, we just talked about it. We started the show. As much as I think there are problems with the NFL's process and the way they tested the footballs, and I think that it's very heavy-handed, but that's what's happening all the time, the rebuttal was just hysterical at certain points, okay? So it's funny because I'm reading, like, people are going, Kraft, good call, smart man. Like, Kraft gets credit for this? Robert Kraft gets credit for deciding not to follow through on the appeal when the chances are that he probably backed down because they weren't going to win.
It's interesting. I guess I'm fascinated by this, actually. Because what I want to know, look, there's the story you present to the public, and then there's what happened, right? So Goodell and Kraft and whomever have some sort of conversations where they say, look, this is this is that. Here's where we are. What are we doing, right? I don't know the details of that, so that's obviously I'm being intentionally vague because I haven't got a clue what the conversations are about. That leads you to saying, essentially, I'm standing down here. But then the Brady, this is where the Brady piece gets. That's an entirely different deal, right?
Yes. So he's not speaking for Brady there. Brady will still have his appeal. Brady will try to get this reduced from 4 games to whatever. But think about this. Now Kraft looks like the hero because it's for the good of the league and we can end the rhetoric and it's time to move on despite Dude, a week ago, you came out guns blazing. The Super Bowl, you demanded an apology. You backed Tom Brady. Tommy, your guy wouldn't lie to you. So we're coming after you. And a week later, it's different, yet that's somehow spun into Captain America. Robert Kraft strikes again. Like, that's a joke.
That's what I'm thinking. And I'm wondering here, and by the way, I agree completely with what you just said. It's a hell of a trick. It's a hell of a trick.
I mean, guys that I really like are tweeting going, Kraft, he gets it. You're like, wait a minute, do you get it? Do you see what just happened?
It's like when you're the young knuckleheads in the bar and then the other knucklehead bar crew, you guys you interact, and then there's going to be a fight. But by the end of the night, you know what? It's like arms around each other, shots, we're all best friends. Somehow this fight we've been able to diffuse that. I wonder if you say, listen, I won't appeal. You guys cut Tom's 4-2. We're all good.
Oh, wow. You're throwing that out there.
Why not?
Yeah, you know what?
We'll do this, you do that. Huh? Partnership. Good for us, good for you. I look magnanimous. Everybody's cool.
That was a magic trick that just happened.
The magic trick is how many people that you're reading that, you know, in the media world are like, man, that's a smart play. Good job by Kraft. From I declare war to, I got a nice salad. I'm going to talk about the extra point stuff, sort it out.
If Kraft thought he could win this, he doesn't do this today. So maybe something was cut. And I think your Brady theory, I have no idea, but it's like while we're sitting here just throwing out stuff, trying to figure out what happened.
Just two guys chopping it up?
Here. I like it. I like where you're going there. I don't know if that has anything to do with it because you're talking about the NFLPA in that instance, and then also an outside arbiter once the Goodell thing gets sorted out. But all you have to do is read that rebuttal to the Wells report, and it didn't sound like a team that was ready to stand down anytime soon. So how did it change in a week?
Bobby, do the math on this, Bobby. Brady makes about $2 million for the 4 games, makes about $1 million for the 1 game. You don't have to pay him $1 million for the 2 games. You get fined $1 million. That's a wash.
It's $1 million to Kraft, an owner of an NFL team.
I'm just saying it's 3-card money. One guy goes this way, one guy goes this way. $1 million goes away. Your first round pick. What are you going to do? You're just going to trade it down anyway. You're going to cut all your cornerbacks. No big deal.
Well, now you're talking crazy because the $1 million does not mean anything to him.
I know. I'm trying to conveniently connect the dots here. That's all. 2 games. You do this. 2 games.
It clearly work because it makes Kraft look good, and he doesn't have to lose a fight or continue the fight publicly because that's the thing. That's the NFL bylaw, and you're reading about that stuff that he would have to go outside and
think about something that made you outraged, that was an affront to your reputation, and that you fought with 20,000 words. That not a week.
I don't have anything like this.
Nor do I. But think about something that was. I'm talking about an assault on you and everything you stand for, and you are prepared to say, "Hold on, just a minute," and then not a week later, I'm good.
I wouldn't be surprised. No, you're right. I wouldn't be surprised if Goodell and some people got to him and said, "Do you realize what some of the arguments were? That the equipment manager was fighting weight loss. Okay? So you're attaching yourself to the other side of this. You come after us with this rebuttal. Yeah, things could have been done better, but, man, you really hammered what we did. You hammered Wells. You backed your guy Brady. Brady tried to say he didn't know McNally, and McNally's worked for the Pats for 32 years, and Brady's been there for 15. That is impossible. It is impossible. So, Robert, figure it out, man. Like, you guys screwed up. You may not like what we did. You may think we're making an example of you, but you screwed up, and it's 2015, so we just have to hammer everybody now with punishment to appease the masses and to appease the other 31 owners that want us to punish you so that it doesn't look like I'm playing favorites to you. You're probably going to lose this thing. So, I don't know, man. It's this went from boring and predictable and repetitive to actually, I'm with you. Pretty fascinating that it changed this much in a week. Stanford Steve, what are you telling me? Hey, we got Mort on. All right, we got
We got Mort on Goodell, the commissioner. Here's Mort. Mort's going to be with us, by the way, hour 2.
It's like the president. You may not have voted for President Obama, or you may not have voted for President Bush, but the office of the president demands and commands respect. And I think that's what Robert Kraft is saying here, besides the personal part of it. I think that's what he's saying here. So, yeah, Goodell stands strong, but let's face it, the Tom Brady battle through appeal to me is far more significant than the Robert Kraft versus Goodell battle. And oh, by the way, there were probably more owners, I think, aligned behind Goodell on this matter than there were Robert Kraft.
I take issue with that, man. This guy's not the president. He's in charge of 32 billionaires, and they're all good earners, and he gets paid $44 million. And business is great. And if you're Kraft, I mean, this guy's not the president.
I also think the other owners, and I agree with you, I think the other owners can become short-sighted with this because it's the Patriots, because it's Kraft, and because it's still, again, it's Belichick. That, and this is where if I were an owner, I go, well, wait a minute, do I want all of this bad stuff to happen to Kraft and happen to the Patriots because it makes me feel better as a competitor? Or do I want the league to go kind of light on him here because it is kind of silly about the lowering of air pressure in footballs, knowing that that sets me up and my team for whatever we're doing in the gray area that we're going to get slammed too. And I think the owners, the way they're programmed, they like that this happened to the payout. This is the punishment for the Patriots. But long term, you lost. You lost with the Patriots getting hammered like this if you own one of the other teams because something's going to happen to you.
You can love the team that you want to dislike, the one that you loathe, the one who wins a lot that really irks you. You can root for them to be punished, but then you've got to take inventory and say, hold on, what baseline are we establishing, right? To your point.
Exactly.
If we're narrowing the playing field to the degree that we've got to keep it straight down the fairway, man, we don't want to be the team that hits it over there in the deep stuff, and then we're the ones that get smashed. To that point, Peter King from the Monday Morning Quarterback about what type of support Kraft might or might not have had among his rank and file ownership.
What everybody is asking is there any way that this could make 24 owners, because that's how many it would take to get rid of Roger Goodell. Is there any way that Kraft could get an ownership group like that together? I don't think so. And the reason is that I don't sense, there's a lot of teams in the NFL right now. There's a bunch of owners, I think, that are not unhappy to see the Patriots get penalized.
It's SVP Russillo, ESPN Radio. If you've just tuned in, Robert Kraft said, and I'm paraphrasing here, they're going to accept reluctantly, quote, what he's given to us, meaning the Commissioner Roger Goodell. But that does not mean, and it's the most important point to make here is that does not mean that Brady's appeal of his suspension, which independent of this, is tied to it. And my knee-jerk reaction / speculation is, are these back-channel conversations Adam Schefter's talking about yesterday, the type of thing where you negotiate, we'll stand down, you take it from 4 to 2, and we move on. Have no clue. That's reckless speculation.
I don't think it's reckless, though. I think it's – there's times you're just saying stuff on the air, not you specifically, but that – who knows? Who knows what happened?
It's just speculation.
Right, but I don't think that's crazy.
No, I've said far crazier stuff. Remember when we talked about could you fight a wolf? Those were fun days.
SVP and Russillo.
Chris Mortensen, ESPN NFL Insider, joins us in studio. Obviously, it's been a busy morning and early afternoon, given Robert Kraft saying that they would reluctantly take, quote, what he gave us, meaning Commissioner Goodell. Was this what you anticipated seeing?
It's what I anticipated once I heard that Robert Kraft was going to have a press conference. You don't have a press conference at the owners' meeting to announce that we're going to appeal this, we're going to fight it, and I'm going to go after Goodell's job. So that's kind of what I anticipated when we heard Kraft was going to speak. And as you know, he didn't take any questions. He used some of the right words trying to satisfy Patriots fans, but acknowledged that there is another group of fans across the country that is in the other camp. I will also say this. There are owners in this league that line up behind Roger Goodell more on this one than you would probably expect. So
that actually doesn't surprise me.
Doesn't? Yeah. And I guess it doesn't surprise me, but I think that there's certainly been a sense and some owner power brokers that they feel like it's no different than if you the office of the president. Whether you may not have voted for President Bush, you may not have voted for President Obama, but you end up having to respect the office itself, and I think that's kind of what Kraft was saying today. And by the way, it has gone. It's four months we've been talking about this, and we're not finished because he never mentioned Tom Brady in that press conference.
I made the point earlier, Mort, that I think the Kraft standing down today, and this is just a theory, could it theoretically be in exchange for a reduction of, look, you walk away from this, we'll make the 4 games too, and not everyone's happy, but at least we move past this?
Theoretically, yes. It's kind of what I've suspected. Adam Schefter, my partner, who's really been locked into this, doesn't think there's been any deal made.
Okay.
We'll wait and see. At the same time, I'll say this, that rebuttal that the Patriots put out on their website in almost 20,000 words, I thought when they put that out publicly that was a sign to me that they were not going to appeal. You don't put that out. That's your appeal. Hopefully it wouldn't have been the deflator part wouldn't have been part of that, but you don't put that out publicly if you're going to appeal.
More in studio. So let me get this right. Kraft, during the Super Bowl, demands a public apology once it is found out the Patriots don't do anything wrong.
Right.
Brady has consistently acted like, what me worry, and even said he didn't know McNally, who's been on the staff for only 32 years, more than double the 15 that Tom has been there. So that's not even possible that would be true. The deflator thing's a joke. But then Kraft recently, as of last week, says he's got his guys back. He's got Tom Brady's back. So even if last week the response to the Wells report was their public rebuttal to kind of just get their voice out there, at some point did someone tell Kraft, no one believes you guys anymore? And I think the penalties are far too stiff, but is there a possibility that it wasn't just a public ploy to put it behind him because it's been 4 months, but he just knew that maybe some allies were telling him, just give this thing up? Because it did make Kraft look good today somehow, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's certainly a possibility of that, but the Brady component of this is a whole separate entity. If you remember that very first week in the aftermath of a game, they won the AFC Championship by a score of 45-7. And using regulation football in the second half, he was much better, they were much better. If you remember, the first press conference was on Thursday of that week that the Patriots had, and it was Belichick first, then Brady. The first person, non-media person, ever to basically say, put on Brady was Belichick. He said, you guys need to ask Tom. He deals with the footballs. And I think at that point, then when Brady came to that press conference, I think a lot of people have expressed the opinion they felt, he could have handled that better. And we've since heard through his friends like Teddy Bruschi that he is adamant, and Kraft has said as well, that Tom has said, I did not do this. I didn't have any knowledge of this. And then people want to know why you just didn't come out that very Thursday and say, you know what, I like my footballs on the low end of inflation. I've made that clear. If these guys felt some stress or pressure to do less than that, then that's on me. I'll accept the blame if that's what you want to do. I think people might have moved on.
We were talking about this off air, and this has been kind of a working thought. Did you think that Brady was spooked that if he would have just gone with that? Because I've said the exact same thing, but Ryan was pointing out, do you think he was spooked that if he said that he'd have been sat for the Super Bowl?
Maybe, because there's just some unknown elements here we're dealing with. Troy Vincent now, the senior vice president of football operations, I'm not sure there's a comfort level with him being involved in as much discipline because he doesn't have a history, and he talks. So maybe there was just a discomfort about who am I really dealing with here? Am I dealing with Goodell? Am I dealing with Troy Vincent? As we saw, Troy Vincent technically wrote him the letter and was authorized by Goodell to met out the punishment. So maybe that was part of it. But there's no way they would have told Tom Brady you can't play in the Super Bowl.
Look, I'm with you that it probably doesn't happen, but that's what I thought of immediately after I saw the Brady thing and go, okay, so he's going with this route. Like, I don't know anything. And the problem is that even if you want to believe Brady, he loses credibility when he says he doesn't know McNally. He loses credibility when he's asked the Salem thing, like, what do you think? Oh, I haven't had time to digest it all. How could you not have time to digest it? You were calling the trainer. You were calling the equipment guy immediately afterwards, after all this stuff. And some writers presented that as him supporting guys on the staff during a tough time, but clearly it was him going, what are you going to say? Let's get our story straight.
Well, listen, I don't know what those conversations were about, but clearly Ted Wells in his report felt that was more evidence that there was, Brady involved.
It's circumstantial, but still.
Brady stonewalling. And, listen, part of this penalty the whole time I was having it explained to me. The formula here is I don't want to say the crime and the cover up or stonewalling. You just call stonewalling, and that you're probably looking at a 2 and 2 type of deal. 2 for the offense and 2 for the stonewalling, and that's really kind of what it came out to. 4. Can he get it reduced? Sure. I mean, did I think it was too harsh? I did. But at the same time, it just hasn't been a good 4 months for football. And last week, the Wells Report wasn't a good day for football. The punishment day was not a good day for the NFL for anybody, and certainly wasn't a good day for Tom. But we got another fight next round, baby.
Right. Can't wait. You had said that you don't think that there's a lot of backing behind Kraft from ownership and more backing for Goodell. And I can understand why that is that way. But do the other owners that kind of secretly like this punishment because it's anti-Kraft and because it's going after this Patriots team that they've had issues with, that they've now opened themselves up to very harsh punishment if the kicking tees aren't regulation? Right. For all the support there could be for Goodell in this punishment that goes against the Patriots, you now are setting the bar a lot higher for what could happen to your team.
Well, I think this offseason when the Browns got their penalties for something that, a GM texting a coach saying, why aren't we throwing the ball deeper? Fan questions, getting, suspended for the start of the season and being docked a draft pick. Were they docked a draft pick, Browns? I can't. But the Falcons certainly were. Somebody was piping in crowd noise, and Rich McKay wasn't even involved. They cleared Rich McKay, but since he's the president of the team and in charge of stadium operations, they suspend him from the competition committee, which is a stain on a pretty darn good record. So I think they already have the message that, if anybody messing around, we're cracking down. So, yeah, that could – I'm not saying it's going to backfire, but they're certainly going to be subject to severe penalties for something we may not see as a very serious offense.
How much – we're 20 seconds, we're gone. How much do you dread off seasons?
Usually quite a bit. I do like the draft.
Okay, that's behind us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Except he really likes free agency.
That's on the first cut down day.
We don't even have that anymore.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
SVP and Russillo.
Tonight, Western Conference Finals get underway, 9 Eastern. You can watch on ESPN and listen here on ESPN Radio. And the NBA's draft lottery. And we're discussing this before the show about the ideas of what's in play, what could happen, how will people react if certain things play out.
What would upset you the most? Who wins tonight? You want to start the show just flipping out. I know the answer. Don't lie. Don't lie to America.
What's the answer?
If the Sixers win the lottery, you're going to be worked up tomorrow.
And yet, that is the right answer. I don't love what they've done. And look, Sixer fans can say, hey, I understand. I've heard it all. I understand your arguments. Being in the 8 spot doesn't benefit you, et cetera, et cetera. Understood. The idea that this would be rewarded and that it worked, in a sense, feels like a bummer. And yet, if they don't get it, then I guess they're going to just continue to stink forever until they do. And that's way more offensive to me than the reward of the intentionally not being good.
Okay, but wait a minute. If they don't win the lottery, they're going to keep trying to stink, but somehow if they get the number 1 pick and they get Towns, their plan completely changes?
Well, if they let's say they end up picking 3rd this year.
And they have about a 47% chance of landing in the top 3. That's what you're doing when you're tanking. You're not tanking for the number 1 pick. You hope to get it, but you're tanking for a chance to have a top 3 pick.
Okay. So if they get, let's say 1, 2, 3 is Towns, Okafor, and Russell.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and Philadelphia's got a chance, and we discussed this with Legner, and like less than a 25% chance, but they could get 1, 3, and 11?
No, 1, 6, and 11, and it's less than 25% chance. It's less than the 1% chance. It's 0.28.
Yeah, that's
not happening.
Dude, is that less than? Is that not less than 25%? Technically.
Okay, so back to the part where we're talking about.
I don't love what Philadelphia's done, and I understand what your hope is, but that's not going to bother me. Is like if the Lakers get it and people are going to freak out and be mad, that's not going to make me mad. If the Knicks get it, well, God bless you. Good luck in New York, but that's not going to trouble me either. You, what does anything bother you? What bothers you?
Nothing bothers Ryan.
I know a team he doesn't want to see get it.
If Minnesota gets it, I just think it'll be met with indifference, even though they're the odds-on favorite to get the number 1 pick tonight. They have the most losses. The Knicks get it. The fix is in. Whatever they decided there, I guess they also wanted to fix it for Cleveland a bunch of years in a row because they were so upset with the way Cleveland was being treated. So the Knicks, Lakers, fix is in. Sixers, I think more outrage. If the Sacramento Kings get it, I don't know that I'm going to love that.
Stop and say it the right way.
I'm not a huge fan of the Kings operation.
There we go. Closer, warmer.
You just hear these stories now, and you go, man, like the owner. I think the owner's still in new owner phase. So if they don't win it, I could see them trading their pick maybe for another piece because they just, they're in that spot where they go, we need to win now. We need to make DeMarcus happy and all these different things. But that would be the one where I feel like not knowing what you're doing is being rewarded more than, say, the Sixers. You can hate the Sixers' plan, but at least it's a plan, and I understand what it is. Where Sacramento's plan has been, I don't know. Honestly, I can't tell you what it is.
So, in review, the most likely outcome tonight is
Minnesota.
But,
as we know, only 4 teams since '85 with the worst record have won the number 1 overall pick.
How many stars do you think there are that come out this year?
It's way less than you think there are before the draft or draft night. Because when you go back and look at it, if you get 2 studs out of the top 10 guys, that's still pretty good. I think Towns is going to be really good. I still have a hard time believing Okafor's not going to be an impactful player in the NBA, even though everybody seems to be down on him now. And I like D'Angelo Russell a lot, like you do. Moutier's a tougher guy to evaluate because he played in China and there's no defense over there. I saw him in the high school showcase games where he looked terrific. But it's harder to figure him out when he doesn't play here in the States. But I don't think it's held against him by front offices at all. I think front offices, and this has been cool, I don't think anybody looks at the China thing for him and holds it against him, where when Brandon Jennings played in Italy, it was like, oh, what's this guy doing? Who's he think he is?
It's SVP Russillo here on ESPN Radio. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. You can save hundreds in your car, business, recreational vehicle insurance from a local independent agent. Go to Progressive.com today. Now, that's Progressive. When you're out in Chicago and you talk to the GM types, and I'm not naming names here because I don't know how much of the conversations you have are just two fellas talking in a gym and what could be sort of paraphrased for the consumption of the listeners. But do you get a sense that guys that have, maybe their plans are to be in the draft, that there's frustration with people not getting it, or is there a way to describe I guess what I'm asking is, does it bother people to hear their approach critiqued? Do you think?
Well, I mean, the only thing I could think of is Philadelphia, right? Like, if you were Philadelphia, of course it would bother you because the rest of the league resents the fact that Sam Hinkie, the GM, gets to keep his job and he's putting the worst team out there.
And everyone does resent that, right?
Other GMs will let you know, be like, hey, sweet gig. Win less than 20 games, and he has the greatest job security of anybody here. But you know why he has the security? Because he has a plan, and everybody can laugh at it, and I'm disgusted by it at certain times when it's 8 players out there that well, 8's a lot, but there's nights where 4 or 5 players that are playing, you wouldn't even be on an NBA roster. But the point is this, is when teams have tanked in the past, they tank, and then when they don't get the number 1 pick or they don't get the impactful guy, and they end up with a 5th or 6th pick, are they supposed to just completely change course and go, hey, all right then, let's be good now next year. We didn't get the bad pick that we wanted, so now let's just go be good. And the Sixers, I would guess, look at it differently in that they're going, Well, just because if they don't get Towns tonight, or they don't get the number 1 overall pick, or they get the 4th pick, say, does that mean that they then are going to go and sign Andre Miller for $6 million a year, so they have a veteran presence to make everybody happy that's sick of what they've done the last couple of years? Because that would be dumber than I think the criticisms of what they've tried to do here the last couple of seasons.
And that's just my frustration, and I'm not a Sixer fan, is that if that is what happens, if there's not that path to improvement via a good player, then you just theoretically stay in this place you're in suspended animation until further notice.
Yeah, but you're saying it as if there are the other options that are so much better. And that's what I've always tried to tell you, is that the league, that's how screwed up the league is. It's so hard to add guys that are of any significance that this is their plan. So you don't like it, but you never offer an alternative that is better.
Do you have to have the 8 guys? You said it yourself. They have nights where you look at their people. Who do you even – you don't have to have a roster that's as bad as their roster. You don't. I'm not saying you have to go get Andre Miller and say, hey, now we're trying. But I'm saying you don't have to get every guy that played at Georgetown on NIT teams and say, hey, welcome tonight. Here come the Wizards against your Sixers.
So you're saying tank less offensively.
I'm saying – yes.
Okay, then. So then you can do what the Lakers do and say we're about winning and we're about Kobe and Magic is awesome.
They're different because they've got the one guy and he's the giant weight that's attached to their foot.
Right, and then we'll go sign Carlos Boozer to make you think we're still in this, but we actually stink too. Because Byron Scott doesn't understand three-pointers.
I
can't wait. If they win it tonight and Magic starts tweeting,
that's not what I want to see.
Lakers is your don't want it to happen.
I'm just going to watch it tonight. You're going to see him take the seat, and you're like, no. Please, no.
I'm confused how it is that Philadelphia's roster on certain nights that you can look at it and go, this is an embarrassment.
I've never said that it isn't an embarrassment. But I'm wrong to say that their team's an embarrassment. I've said this every time we've had this disagreement. I can find it disgusting at times, but I respect what they are doing, and that is more important than the bad Tuesday lineup against the Nets. And you are disgusted by all of it, but
I want them to tank less offensively.
Right.
That's a flawed theory as well, because there's really no way to do it. I guess, kids, if you're gonna be the best at being the worst, and then I hope you get a pick. And if you don't, then you can just keep doing it forever and ever. And that'll be awesome.
SVP and Russillo.
No, but not for real.
Tonight is the NBA lottery. The prize of which for much of the year, based on the way he performed out of the gates, Russillo Okafor from Duke, his fast start coincided with a slower start from Karl Anthony Towns at Kentucky. But based on conversations you had last week in Chicago, you definitively believe that the prize tonight is the Kentucky big man, correct?
Yeah, hard to find too many people that think Okafor would go number one to some of the other teams that are in the mix for the top pick. You did hear Minnesota. Minnesota would do it. Maybe they would take Okafor. I don't know. I can't tell you yes or no. And I think there's so much of the draft process and the rumor stuff that now it starts to heat up as soon as you finally know who's in what range. Then the other question has kind of been, after 5 or 6, does this draft actually take a dramatic turn downwards?
Do you think it does?
I think after Winslow, there are a lot more question marks about how good some of these players really are. I do like Porzingis a lot, the kid from Latvia, but I liked him last year. Then you start, okay, Stanley Johnson really that good? Is Devin Booker really that good? Miles Turner from Texas, who some people think out of Texas can be a top 5 guy and should go higher than a lot of other people. Then you hear mid-lottery. I think Trey Lyles from Kentucky, because he's so big and can handle as a perimeter guy, that he'll do better in workouts. But there seems to be, 5 or 6 after that, you're going, okay, who do you really have? Like, who are you really drafting? You drafting somebody who can be a starter on a decent NBA team at 8 or 9, or is it going to be one of those drafts where you go, it was pretty slim pickings after, say, 6 or 7?
Yeah, and we've done this exercise where you go through, particularly recently, and you look at what there really is, and what type of hit rate are you talking about, and how many stars are we talking about? Last year there was the curiosity with a guy like Exum, the point guard, who we didn't know a ton about because he was didn't play here. There's a kid this year that's similar in the sense that he could be a point, although physically he's a much different player, but he didn't qualify to get into SMU, and that's Moutier. And anything that I had heard about this guy has been positive. He's still enigmatic because you're a young guy, you go away to China, and you got some Under Armour money, and you avail yourself of that professional opportunity to at least get some sort of on-the-job training. How's he perceived?
Moutier?
Yeah.
Physically that gifted, more of that new point guard where, whenever anybody says to me, well, he's not a traditional point, I go, then you don't pay attention to what's going on in the NBA because the traditional point guard doesn't really exist anymore.
What are you guys talking about, Tiny Archibald?
Chris Paul, yes, is a traditional point in that sense, but the rest of the guys, Steph is a point guard, but not the one you grew up with.
Right.
Russell Westbrook, give me a break. When Rose was getting an MVP, that's not the traditional guy. So when anybody says, well, Moutier's not a traditional point, you go, well, then you don't really pay attention to the evolution of the NBA. And that's who he is. He's a scoring, big point that probably is more of a 2 than a point, but that's, I think, the excitement. Where the same thing happened with Exum. I think the excitement for Dante Exum was that maybe this kid could be a 6'6" point guard, and I'm not giving up on him, but his first year in Utah was terrible.
Yeah, that's always the fear of the projection. You fall in line, and with Exum, I don't know what.
Exum was in a high school in Australia, sat out the year, and then just worked out in L.A. and ended up being a top pick.
Right.
Moutier, at least people can say they've seen him in the high school circuits. And when you watch him in some of those showcase high school games, he did stand out where you go, this guy's a little different.
I only saw one of those, and you hesitate to place a whole lot of emphasis or meaning on anything other than just what did he look different than the guys he was out there running around with? And I thought he did, just physically. All this, by the way, is buried in and around Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. You can watch it on ESPN at 9. It's presented by Auto Trader here on ESPN Radio, where the coverage begins at 8 Eastern. Also, the ESPN app, that's 8 Eastern on ESPN and the Watch ESPN app. Of the teams that have the best chance, if the Timberwolves get it, I think it's met collectively, nationally as a shrug, and you go, okay, well, you can slap them together with Wiggins, and we'll see where they go. But if it's the Knicks or the Lakers, because of the fact that it's obviously glamour cities, the Lakers are a glamour franchise. The Knicks are not at all. All they are is a team that plays in New York. You can show an old Willis Reed video from 40 years ago. Honest to God. That's a joke to me. Any idea that they're good? Based on what? What is it, Rappaport? What are you even talking about with the Knicks? What? What history?
Gritty playoff series.
When? With Ewing? Cool.
The Pacers, the Bulls stuff. The Bulls series were good.
Fine.
Some anger coming out of you.
Well, it's just they're not a good team. They're not
No kidding. They're in the lottery.
But they're franchise. They still get talked about like they matter. They're no different than the Nets. How are they different? The Knicks.
Well, one had Michael Ray Richardson. The other had Bernard. And then they had Bernard, too. So
I just think that when the Knicks get brought up and discussed, they get talked about more than any crap team there is in the league.
Buck Williams?
Don't bleep with Buck, bro. And Bernard King. They had a bunch of dead dueling here.
No, I hear what you're saying. It is an overrated franchise historically, right?
Not even close.
It gets thrown in there a lot with the other ones, and you go, it's actually been a bunch of decades.
They haven't been this bad all these years.
Well, yeah, it'd be hard to. But hey, Phil, all right. Gonna wave some magic wands and pixie dust and figure it all out. I don't care if I'm not mad if they get the pick. Fine with me.
I think you'll be upset.
It doesn't
sound like the Knicks bother you at all, so yeah.
What bothers me is the idea that they get propped up and talked about as anything other than what they are, which is a franchise that's won nothing in a long, long time. So fine, get a good pick. Be good. If they're good, I have no problem with good. I don't like an amount of excessive words about a team that doesn't matter. And we were guilty of it with the Lakers a couple years ago. They stink too.
Yeah, but the Lakers had Howard, Gasol, Kobe, and Nash, and it didn't work, and there were a lot of injuries, so it's still an interesting topic into why it wasn't working.
No question. That they're not the same as
Knicks, we didn't talk about the Knicks at all this year. Once it fell off, none of us were going.
Or the Lakers.
Right.
Because they were interesting.
Yeah, because there was nothing interesting about it. So here's something to always remind yourselves, and we did this very recently with the NFL draft. And you start to look only a few years ago. So if you get the 6th pick tonight and you go, all right, this is still pretty cool. Like I just randomly picked one. 2011 draft. Kyrie goes 1.
Yeah.
Derek Williams goes 2.
Ooh.
Canner goes 3. Tristan Thompson's going to be a good player. He goes 4th. Jonas Valanciunas, 5th. Here's 6 through 10, all ahead of Klay Thompson. Jan Vesely, Bismack Biyombo, Brandon Knight, who's looking good now, Kemba, and Jimmer Fredette. So that's 5. I don't want to say, you can't say misses. Vesely's a miss. Biyombo's kind of a miss. I mean, he's still in a rotation on not a great team.
Kemba's the best of that group.
I like Brandon Knight better than Kemba. And Kemba's all right. Kemba's all right. And then Jimmer. I felt like in the right system.
That's a horrible one.
So I'm just saying, that's 6 through 10. So when you end up in that slot and you start going, okay, well, we're going to add an all-star. No, you're not. Probably not adding an all-star.
Or maybe 6 through 10 goes Dame Lillard, Harrison Barnes, Terrence Ross, Andre Drummond, Austin Rivers. Those are 5 guys you'd be happy enough to have on your squad.
You're going to have Ross and Rivers.
I wouldn't feel – put it this, I like Ross better than Vesely, who I don't know where he is right now.
Yeah, but Ross is the guy. It looks like it's going in every time, and then it doesn't.
Dude, the dunks, though? Huh?
You said he was going to be good, so you're hanging on to it. But if you pull up some efficiency numbers there, that's not.
I don't want to look at stuff that makes my point not look good. I want to remember the nights when he scores like 40, which he did that one time, and I'm like, yeah.
I knew he was going to be good.
Have I been trotting out a lot of Terrence Ross takes lately?
No, but you just try to sell him as nice.
No, I'm just looking at I'm looking at that 6 through 10.
That's pretty good.
And saying that's
yeah.
I can live with that.
Yeah.
As opposed to your version of, hey, don't get too psyched tonight is I agree with 100%. I think this is more an outlier. I mean,
yeah, well, you get really like that's the point, man. You're at that thing tonight, team-based thing, probably the team draft party. Like I used to go to them too, and you're sitting there at 8, and you're thinking, man, this is going to be awesome. And sometimes it is Brandon Roy, okay? And if Brandon Roy stayed healthy, you would have had something really special there. Guys, this is not the argument that it does not happen. Of course, things always happen. The Sixers do have 6 second-rounders for this draft. Probably not going to use all 6. I know Ginobili was an awesome pick, man, but chances are they don't amount to anything. And when you start worrying about where a draft is after pick 5 or after pick 6, there's usually more disappointment out there.
ESPN Radio.
With the action on the court, the diamond, or the gridiron.
Comes alive.
The NBA.
The San Antonio Spurs are the world champions.
Major League Baseball.
San Francisco Giants are the champions of the baseball world.
The new college football playoff.
College football playoff national champions, the Ohio State Buckeyes.
You're home for the best in sports play-by-play.
ESPN Radio.
SVP and Russillo.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Timmy, good to visit with you. I was doing SportsCenter last night, and the Chevy Clubhouse with you and Carl Ravitch. You guys were talking about the Dan Jennings hire with the Marlins, and you said it was concerning. How concerning among those in baseball that you talked to was this odd decision?
Well, it was really confusing, Scott, to a lot of people that I talked to. Now, they weren't rooting against Dan Jennings, but they did look at it as an exceptionally odd move when a guy hasn't played pro ball, he hasn't managed after high school 30 years ago. There are candidates all over the place, and we all understand that Dan Jennings has a direct connection to Jeffrey Loria. They're good friends. They trust each other. I understand that part of it. But the people I spoke to in baseball just said, this is not how it's done here. Now, when you're the Marlins and you're struggling, you're allowed to try whatever you want. And they're hoping that he is going to provide some sort of spark. But I can tell you, fellas, the new athlete of today, the new baseball player of today, looks at the manager and wonders, what did you do? What is your pedigree? What is your resume? And if you don't have one, and I've seen this a whole bunch of times, mostly our young guys will say, well, what do you know about what I'm going through if you never played professionally? And is that right? No, to me that is wrong, but that's reality. That's how it is, and that's what Dan Jennings, to some degree, is going to be up against, and that's what some major league managers told me yesterday, and a couple told me, look, the game moves a whole lot faster than you understand until you're standing in the dugout making the decisions every night. And Dan Jennings said after the game, it did speed up in the 8th inning faster than I thought it would, and that's something he's going to really have to get used to.
Yeah, I feel bad for the guy. I don't know anything about him other than what I've read, and I mean, he could be respected as a baseball man, but I think he's in an impossible position because I don't think the guys in the opposite dugout are going to respect him because they're just going to kind of scoff. And then how do you create respect given that environment that you're describing, Tim? It seems like an impossibility.
Yeah, he's a great guy, Scott. Everybody in the game likes Dan Jennings because he's been a good executive. He was a great scout, and he is a great baseball man. But there are a lot of great baseball guys out there that don't necessarily translate to the dugout. And I'm going to give him every benefit of the doubt here. Stranger things have happened, but when people say, well, Bobby Cox went from GM to manager of the Braves, he'd already managed 1,200 games in the major leagues. He just took another job and then went back. This isn't Paul Owens or Jim Fanning in 1981. This is a guy who hasn't done it before, and this is what the baseball men that I spoke to yesterday were concerned about is what kind of respect are you going to get from people when you've never done this. Now, we'll see how it goes. Maybe this will be a great idea, but one manager just sent me a text yesterday that said, Dan Jennings, ? That was all he said, and I think that spoke volumes from a lot of people.
Corey Kluber's been on fire here lately, Tim. Last 2 starts, 30 strikeouts. I think it's just another sign, though, some of the stuff where 2 starts ago, he's at 18 strikeouts, 8 innings in, and they decided to go with the closer. It works out for a 2-0 win. Francona had been thrown out of the game, where Brad Mills has worked for Francona forever, decides to not have him out for the 9th. Are you okay now with that, where everybody's so freaked out about this stuff that we can't even see a guy go for 20 strikeouts?
Yeah, Ryan, this is where we are, and I don't necessarily like it because I'm 58 and I grew up in a time where you finished what you started. Earl Weaver used to tell me, who do you want pitching the 9th inning, Jim Palmer or the 9th best guy on our team? I mean, but it doesn't work that way anymore. Both teams are actually built backwards, some of them, and the best pitchers on your team, in theory, could be in your bullpen. Now, in Corey Kluber's case, in his start before this one, the Indians were going terribly, and if they had lost that game, it would have been a terrible, terrible loss. I, of course, would have loved to have seen him go for 21, but when you're 10 games under, you got to win no matter what, and ultimately, you have to protect your pitchers. And I think we go way, way too far sometimes to protect our pitchers.
Yeah, I just don't like that we've accepted never going after history, whether it was the Colts and Manning years ago where they could have gone undefeated and everyone's like, no, it didn't work for the Pats a few years earlier, so why would they try to do it? And yet they were thrown to guys who try to get bonuses for their salaries. Yeah, right. They didn't care about losing a game to the Bills. I just think it's funny that Kluber's at 113 pitches, 18 strikeouts, 8th inning, come on out for the 9th. I know what you're saying. They've been going badly, and they get the win. But I don't know. I just think it's funny in sports that's happening. All right, let me just end that rant. Last night, I watched Harvey and Lackey with the Mets and Cardinals. We know this one went a long ways, 14 innings. But Lackey wouldn't talk to reporters afterwards where he said, nope, not tonight, guys. Was it because he was mad about a defensive shift that led to the only run that he gave up over 7 innings?
Well, it's possible. He has a tendency to get angry when things don't go well. I looked at that shift as it was happening, and I went, wow, how can you not hit a ground ball to the shortstop here? There's a gap of 90 feet where all you got to do is hit anything, a bunt, anything, and it's a base hit. Yeah. But when it comes to shifting, and I've talked to a whole bunch of managers about this, you tell the pitcher, this is what we're going to do. And the pitcher, especially a veteran like John Lackey, has the opportunity to say, look, I'm uncomfortable with this. Do not shift behind me. But what managers tell me is you can't complain about it after the fact. And if you look at the location that the catcher, Yadier Molina, set up on that pitch, lacking mislocation by a good amount, and instead of a ball in that he pulls, it was away, and he had a weak ground ball up the middle, which beat the shift. So you got to be careful with the shifts. If I'm a pitcher, I wouldn't like them shifting like that. But when the numbers say this is what you're supposed to do, you better do it, and you don't complain about it if you don't execute what you're supposed to do.
Tim, you know where I was last Saturday? I was in Baltimore.
You were at the racetrack.
Yeah, you know what racetrack I was at, Timmy? Pimlico! Pimlico. American Pharaoh won again.
Scott, who's the Kentucky pitcher that pitches for the Mets?
Bartolo Colon. I'll take any request you got, Timmy. Enjoy your Tuesday, my friend. Thank you, pal.
SVP and Russillo.
Mayo's the best condiment. The storyline popped up and was immediately squashed today. NOLA.com says John Calipari interested in the Pelicans' job, sources say. The headline reads, but can they afford him? To which Calipari quickly tweeted he's happy in the job he has. Is that what he said? I'm trying to pull up both things. I have no interest in the Pelicans or any other job. You believe him?
This seems a little odd. I mean, did someone from New Orleans just decide to throw this out there?
Dude, maybe they listen to the show. People really like us down there.
Yeah, I do. The first thing you think of is Cal angling for even more money, and everybody freaks out. So they hear he's interested in this thing. Or is it true that he is interested, but he has to squash it publicly so that Lexington doesn't raid his neighborhood?
Well, it's interesting because there's a kid named Murray, Jamal Murray, present, that apparently is on campus today. I was reading. He can go. And you wonder, given the way things ended up, and I was only speculating, and I went out of my way to point that out, only speculating that the way things went at the end of this cycle where there were all these top 10 committed kids that they didn't go to UK, which Calipari had gotten them all lately. You wonder, I don't know, is there rumblings? Is there some sort of buzz that maybe Cal's looking to bounce at the end of this season? And so you have a really good player around today as this thing comes up. You go, no, we're good. I don't know I think it's human nature to always kind of want to angle for more. I mean, Saban's done it at Alabama, and these two are similar. They're at school. We've talked about this a ton. Saban, he could have shot down Texas, but he just didn't. And he didn't, and he didn't, and he didn't.
And his agent played it up too. So,
yeah, and then after he got the extension, he said, I never had any interest, which you could have conveniently said a week and a half ago, but you just wouldn't have gotten that extension. So Cal, I think, just got extended another year into the 2020s, where he's at like $8 million per. So I don't know. Who knows?
I mean, there's a million different things. It could be another school doing it that wants this recruit and messing with him there. It could be that Cal is interested in it and it got out, and he has to squash it publicly to make himself look like he's still committed to Kentucky. Or it could be completely untrue and he's happy and he's going to stay at Kentucky, and it just happens to be a bad coaching search rumor.
Could be any of those.
I just don't know what the answer is.
Nor do I. What names make sense in New Orleans?
Well, when all the Tibbs stuff happened, and that everybody's assuming that he's out of Chicago, but that one's a weird one because he has money on the books for 2 more years, but then people were saying Chicago was going to try to parlay his contract into, well, if you want him, you have to give us a pick, and then we'll trade him to you. And if I'm another team, I go, hey, no, you know what? You can go ahead then and keep the coach that no one seems to think you want to have coaching your basketball team anymore. We're not giving you a pick. Either let him out and he'll make the money from us, or don't. We're not giving you an asset for him.
Right. Why are we going to trade for the player everybody knows that you're getting ready to cut?
So, there's that. I don't know that I love as good of a coach I think that Thibodeau is. I don't know that I love him with that Pelicans roster, knowing that those guys are always hurt all the time anyway. Is that the best fit? And then there's the Gentry thing where a lot of people in the Chicago Combine were saying, yeah, Gentry's probably going to be the guy with the Bulls, which surprises me. but that Gentry's in the mix with New Orleans, so I don't know how Gentry became a hot name here. The weird thing about New Orleans, apparently Joe Dumars is ready to take this whole team over anyway. He's going to be running point, and Dell Demps is still technically the GM. And why you would hire Dumars to do any of this stuff after the end of his run in Detroit, which was abysmal, but maybe you just point to the fact that when Dumars was good, he actually was really good, and they had that great starting five that made a long run. But I don't know. I don't know how he went from one of the better GMs in the league to a guy you couldn't even explain his moves anymore. But when you play, you always get another opportunity to run a team, even if your resume says you shouldn't.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about in New Orleans, Calipari would be the splashiest hire you could make because of the ties to Tyreek and to Anthony. But he's not nearly as accomplished at this level as a Thibodeau or even as a Scott Brooks, who I know people can eye roll and act like he stinks as a coach, but at least he's been successful at this level. And most successful coaches have good players. Well, he'd have good players in New Orleans as well. I'll always wonder about a guy's competitive pride, professional pride, when, we've seen it across the board in different sports, whether it's the Pete Carrolls or, as it turned out, Saban never went back to do it again. But, Cal's young enough to just go ahead and go take a swing and still come back to the college game if he wanted to. But, once you've been at this place, Kentucky, I don't know what gig would even really be that appealing.
Yeah, it's always weird when you think about New Orleans, but I also don't think that Tom Benson and that ownership, I don't think they're the type of team, type of group there, even with all the extra revenue coming in with a new TV deal, where you're just going to pay Cal $8 million. Are the Pelicans really going to do that?
Why would anyone?
I could see a team doing it as you'll see in the NBA, and I mentioned this before, is they'll pay the guy that's the big name at coach to distract the fan base of the fact that the roster isn't that great. But then if it's Cal, why is he going to an NBA roster that isn't that great? Like, there were rumblings that Cal could have already been in Cleveland had Cal's timeline matched up LeBron's timeline. But then when LeBron was out, Cal's like, well, I'm out. So that's the one. I think that there's been more truth to the idea that he could come back, meaning to the NBA at some point. But the money's got to add up. I don't care how stressful the Kentucky thing is. You're not taking a pay cut to go to the NBA.
No chance.
Right?
No, and absolutely not. And that's why your point is that makes the most sense as it relates to whatever the next gig is in the league, is how many NBA jobs are there where someone's going to be willing to pay that guy this much money? I understand doing it in college. You're going to your fan base. Look at the track record.
Exactly. Right. Who else would you rather have? You guys,
nobody.
Everybody can make fun of Cal and Wink and all that stuff with Kentucky, but there's not one fan base listening right now that's a college basketball fan base that would be bummed out to have Cal as your head coach. Not one.
Scott, would you rather have Cal or Vinny Del Negro?
In the NBA?
Yeah.
I'm the resident Del Negro apologist here on the show. Cal never did it in the NBA. Now he's, players coach, this and that, La Familia, generational wealth, friends with all the right people. I'm not telling you Del Negro's Red Auerbach, but I don't think that he's some carnival clown the way he's described by people. So give me Vinny. He's cheaper and his record's better.
SVP and Russillo.
And now another episode of Did I Cuss on the Show?
Earlier today on SVP and Russillo.
Okay, so here's the premise. I was doing a Boston accent and attempted to say the password is shed a few LBs.
Right, we were doing kind of the deflator conversation. What would the guys say to each other? And then you went Boston accent. You said this, and
the password is shed a few LBs. No, they call me the deflator because I'm trying to shed a few LBs so I don't have to wear sweatpants to church.
Careful there.
Well, you beeped it, so it must have really sounded like I cussed. Shed. The sweatpants to church line's kind of funny. I'm picturing a bigger masked guy going to church. Hey, Father.
So we couldn't even play it again because it sounded so much like a swear. Did you have to check?
Outsider made the executive decision. He's like, that's too close. I'm not getting in trouble.
Outsider. Just go on the record here.
Complete lie. I didn't hear it.
I don't
guys back there.
I don't believe anything that comes from behind the glass there. The Fruity Pebble story is very, very sketch.
Pebbles is true.
I believe it because I think you're on some weird cough syrup thing.
Yeah, you're on some weird nighttime meds.
Yeah. So look, it was bad. I mean, it's not bad. Like, I don't care. The weird thing is you do this thing where you look at the rest of us like you're mad that we thought you may have swore, and we're like, no, it sounded like you swore, and then you're going, well, no, I did this. Like, we know what you tried to do, but with the accent, it sounded like something else.
No, I'm not mad. I'm afraid and
because it comes out as,
oh no, that's 100% fear. Like, oh no, what have I done? That's all that is. That's defense mechanism. That's what that mode is.
All right.
I didn't say the other one. I said shed. But in my mind,
I know you said shed.
No, I think I said the other thing. No, I wasn't saying it, but I'm sure that's what it sounded like because everyone said, "Hey, that's a funny story to bleep a few pounds."
Is that really why you're going to midnight? So you get to say all these things?
Play blue?
Yeah.
Just go like Fred, like go Red Fox on everybody? No,
Red Fox.
Because I did, or Fred Fox, yeah, his brother.
Not as famous.
Okay,
it's the worst. The other guy does that to you.
Yeah, I had some jokes. I just let them all go. Then this happened with Tim Kurkjian. Tim, you know where I was last Saturday? I was in Baltimore.
You were at the racetrack.
Yeah, you know what racetrack I was at, Timmy? Pimlico! Pimlico. American Pharaoh won again.
Scott, who's the Chucky pitcher that pitches for the Mets?
Bartolo Colon. I'll take any request you got, Timmy. Enjoy your Tuesday, my friend. Thank you, pal. That was this Tuesday with Tim. So there was that. And then we just had Michelle Steele make noises.
Is there no sound effects on this show?
We got a whole board with nonsense. Whatever you want.
Oh,
whatever you want.
Nice.
Outsider, what do you have? I know you
do they have the tugboat sound like?
I think we could just use that one.
Yep, what you just did. And now we have two of them.
Okay.
We'll be revisiting those down the road. Wow, you added one. You found a tugboat noise.
That segment got so weird.
Didn't? I couldn't figure out what happened.
I wanted to always ask her about the stand-up story, but I didn't know that we were going to get into it. And then I thought, okay, we've covered all the Deflategate stuff. It's more interesting when you do that. So I'd known that she did 2 different stand-up comedy routines, and then I thought she was writing for it and trying to pursue it. And so I'm glad we cleared that up. But she actually is really funny.
Yeah. But, I mean, it was just a lot of levels of detail there about people that were kind of heckling. And
imagine bringing up notes for a charity function stand-up thing. Okay, you have to get up there, and you've got a 6-minute set, and you're the one that brings notes.
Yeah. Hey, how about that Iowa caucus?
What's the deal with Republicans?
Crickets, right?